Good evening and thank you for watching this broadcast from Free Press TV, your trusted source for global headlines and in-depth reporting. If you find our coverage valuable, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe so you never miss an update. Jerusalem, August 2nd, President Donald Trump's Middle East envoy is telling families of hostages still held by Hamas that the administration is working on a plan that could bring an end to the war in Gaza, a conflict that has now dragged on for nearly 22 months. Envoy Steve Witkoff, speaking during a meeting with hostage families this weekend, said the U.S. is coordinating closely with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government on what he called a very good plan for Gaza's reconstruction, one that would, in Witkoff's words, effectively mean the end of the war. The White House has yet to comment on the remarks, and Hamas leadership quickly pushed back, insisting they will not disarm unless an independent, fully sovereign Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital is recognized, a demand Israel has long rejected. Indirect negotiations aimed at a 60-day ceasefire and a hostage exchange collapsed just last week. Meanwhile, the humanitarian crisis is worsening. On Saturday, Hamas released a second disturbing video in as many days, showing Israeli hostage Eviatar David visibly emaciated, forced to dig what he says is his own grave. His family warns he and others could be just days from death. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar condemned what he described as deliberate sadistic abuse of hostages, including starvation tactics. Over 60,000 Palestinians have died since Israel launched its offensive in response to the October 7th Hamas attacks that killed more than 1,200 Israelis and saw 251 people taken hostage. Despite Israel's recent steps to open protected aid routes and pause fighting for limited hours each day, UN agencies say these efforts fall far short. The UN warns that airdrops alone cannot keep famine at bay, and is urging Israel to allow far more food and aid by land immediately. This week, Witkoff toured a US-supported aid operation in southern Gaza as the US pushes to get supplies to the enclave's 2.2 million people. Dozens have died of hunger in recent weeks after Israel's near-total supply cutoff from March through May. Gaza's health ministry reported 7 more starvation deaths on Saturday alone, including a child. Meanwhile, diplomatic moves continue. Qatar and Egypt have backed a new French-Saudi declaration, reviving talk of a two-state solution, a plan that would require Hamas to hand over its weapons to the Western-backed Palestinian Authority. Some Western governments are now signaling they may soon formally recognize a Palestinian state. Back in Israel, officials say an understanding with Washington is taking shape to expand the goal from freeing some hostages to freeing them all. Alongside disarming Hamas and fully demilitarizing Gaza, Israel's main conditions to end the war, the stakes are high. According to Israeli officials, 50 hostages remain inside Gaza, but only about 20 are believed to still be alive. We'll continue to follow this developing story and bring you the latest updates as they come in. Tonight, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is deepening, as new reports reveal that at least 325 Palestinians were killed by Israeli fire this past week while trying to reach desperately needed food. That's according to Gaza's health ministry, which says the victims include 24 people killed on Saturday alone in multiple areas across the besieged enclave. The deadly scramble for food continues despite Israel's promises of daily pauses in fighting to allow more aid into Gaza, where malnutrition deaths have soared and entire communities are gripped by starvation. Israel's military insists its troops have only fired warning shots in these deadly incidents. On Wednesday, more than 90 people were shot dead as they rushed to seize sacks of flour from aid trucks near a border zone guarded by Israeli soldiers. Restrictions on aid and basic supplies have triggered international condemnation and warnings from UN-backed hunger experts, who say famine is now unfolding in Gaza. While Israel began allowing airdrops in more trucks last week, the World Food Programme reports that much of that food is looted by armed groups and desperate crowds before it ever reaches official warehouses. Facing global criticism, President Trump dispatched top U.S. officials to Gaza on Friday to visit a food site run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, an American-funded operation that operates under Israeli oversight. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee praised the effort as an incredible feat. Even as UN data shows more than 850 people have been killed near those aid sites and convoy routes since late May. Hamas slammed the envoy's visit as a deceptive show, accusing the US and Israel of failing to protect civilians. On the ground, local residents tell a far more dire story. Some, like Yahya Youssef, described pulling gunshot victims away from food lines only to see more bloodshed the next day. Meanwhile, Gaza's health ministry reported 7 more malnutrition-related deaths on Saturday, including another child. Aid agencies warned that while airdrops continue, now coordinated by a growing coalition led by Jordan and European allies, they are costly, inefficient, and can't replace trucks that bring in vastly larger quantities of food. Felipe Lazzarini, head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, called the airdrops insufficient and highly costly, arguing that if Israel can approve air deliveries, it must also open land crossings to bring in sustained aid flows. Inside Israel, the military's top commander warned, Friday that combat operations would continue relentlessly until all Israeli hostages are freed. Families of those still held captive inside Gaza rallied in Tel Aviv this weekend, demanding a ceasefire and hostage deal. A plan that President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, says he's still pushing for, despite both Hamas and Prime Minister Netanyahu rejecting key terms so far. Amid the devastation, one small sign of support for Gaza's Christian community emerged. The American Jewish Committee has pledged $25,000 to help restore the war-damaged Holy Family Catholic Church in Gaza City. The money will be managed through the Catholic Archdiocese of New York. The rebuilding effort comes as more Jewish leaders in the U.S., along with dozens of Democratic senators, are now urging the Biden administration to back a sustained ceasefire to end the humanitarian nightmare. We'll continue tracking the conflict, the hostage talks, and the aid crisis as it unfolds. For now, I'm Michael Patterson, and from all of us at Free Press TV, thank you for watching. If you appreciate independent reporting, please like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date. Good night.